Oh, hey, Joe.
How you doing, Brian?
Doing well, Joe. How are you?
I'm great.
Oh, my gosh. What a great day.
It is. Spring has sprung.
It has.
It's a little chilly, but you can still feel it. It's spring.
The May flowers are here because of the April showers.
And they are pollinating my face.
Yes, it is. But I will say, yeah, it's pretty chilly out there. Yes. And but hey, you know what? Not complaining. Going outside and getting out and about and doing stuff outside again. That's always a nice feeling. I love spring. Isn't it great?
Everything greens up and it just
so good.
So vibrant and colorful out.
All right, I got to hear this. I've been looking forward to this. Joe does a really great Ted Koppel impression, and I've known him for a long time. I love his impressions, and I really wanted to hear Ted Koppel on the podcast. So, Joe, if you don't mind, can you just give me some Ted Koppel?
Good evening. I'm Ted Koppel, and tonight we're talking real estate and why Joe Stevenson is the best realtor that ever lived.
It's so I can hear it is it Nightline? I hear it's like Nightline in my mind.
Yeah.
And so Ted Koppel. Okay, how would Ted Koppel? Okay, take me through a buyer consultation with Ted Koppel. I'll be buying a house. You be Ted Koppel. Hi, I want to buy a house.
All right. How many bedrooms do you need?
I'm looking for about 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms. How many bathrooms?
Maybe 2 bathrooms.
You sound unsure. Are you really a home buyer?
I am, yes.
All right.
I am. Yes, I'm looking for maybe something with a 2-car garage and a finished basement. Is that hard to do?
That is not hard for Koppel to do. And what is your budget?
Let's see here. $275,000.
Is that just a guess, or are you actually pre-approved?
That is a shot in the dark. Do I have to get pre-approved before we do this?
Yes. I know now that you are an idiot.
You are. Am I wasting your time?
You have wasted both of our time and internet wavelength with this interview.
But Ted Koppel, good Lord, that guy's kind of rough.
Ted Koppel does not mess around when it comes to real estate.
You know how I envision it? I envision like the buyer's consultation where they sit down and I say, hi, and you say, hello, I'm Ted Koppel. Hold on. Oh, this is so amazing. Wow, I'm excited to buy a house.
Good evening. I'm Ted Koppel. It's 9 a.m, Ted. Good evening. That's what I say.
Oh, yeah, no. God, I say it, Ted, you know, even if like someone's not pre-qualified or pre-approved, I feel like you would be a little bit more nicer about like, well, we're not qualified right now because you want to keep the relationship going for when they are qualified.
I would. Yeah, no. And I'm sure Ted Koppel wouldn't be that sassy as a real estate agent. He'd probably be like, well, I'll put you in touch with a lender. Then you can get back to me. You know? So.
I have a list. I have a list of many lenders that you can talk to.
My colleague, Sam Donaldson, also does mortgages. I don't know. I don't know why that. Yeah. But yeah, that's like my best impression. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, what does that do other than amuse the two of us? You know?
Well, I think there are people over the age of 62 who really will enjoy that impression.
That is true. That is the demographic that hits with 61-year-olds.
They're like cut off right there. No, I mean, seriously, like, I guess it works for maybe millennials who are maybe closer to my like older millennials, or I'm a Zennial, I guess. Yeah, I'm the cutoff. I was born in 83, so I guess I'm on the cutoff there. But we grew up, I mean, I know my parents watched the nightly news, and I remember seeing Ted Koppel. I remember SNL, more famously, I remember SNL making fun of him, or that person doing Daryl Hammond, who did the thing on SNL.
I think so. You know, Ted had such staying power. I think several actors did him. I remember one night Tom Hanks was guest hosting, and I think played.
He did Koppel, really?
You know what? I'm second guessing myself. I can't remember if it was Peter Jennings or Ted Koppel.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I enjoy that impression that you do, and it's always cracks me up because it's just it's very specific. Don't hear many people do Koppel.
No, and I discovered it by accident. I think I was like doing an improv scene. And I'm like, this guy kind of sounds like Koppel. I'll go with it, you know?
Nice. Yeah. Well, we'll have to do a segment where Joe does characters trying to do sell houses or consult home buyers or home sellers.
The impressions are going to get progressively worse. Episode 10 is going to be, this is Jack Nicholson. I'm selling it. That doesn't sound anything like Nicholson.
Well, it helps that you say who it is right before you do the impression.
Nicholson? I thought it was just a anemic old man.
I do enjoy like the idea, like imagining Ted Koppel like trying to negotiate with or Ted Koppel like trying to talk back to the person who like inspects the house. It's like something like, that's not a problem.
That is a funny thing. Like when somebody's doing an impression of somebody like out of their element, like, yeah, Ted Koppel in a home inspection. Are you sure that's code? I don't know. We should bring in an engineer. I feel like that outlet should be grounded.
Oh my gosh.
That's not tempered glass.
So I guess if you ever get a home consultation, a home seller, home buyer consultation, Joe, make sure he does the Ted Koppel impression while he's doing it.
You get that for free.
Yeah, that's included in the package, the Joe to Realtor package.
My volume might not be as high as some other agents, but I can do great impressions of retired news anchors. Yeah.
That's like from that movie, This is Spinal Tap, where they were like, it was that Rob Reiner was introducing it. He goes, yeah, they are England's loudest band. I might have the volume, but I'm the loudest guy. So now speaking of the Kansas City real estate market, things are happening. It's getting kind of weird out there because, interest rates and mortgages still historically low, but not the, interest rates that we've been accustomed to the last few years. Those are getting a little higher out there. And I've been looking around, looking at the prices, and I subscribe to the realtor.com kind of alerts about homes that around the area. And they like to send out things that decrease in price, increase in price, stuff like that. And I've noticed a little bit more of the decrease side. And this is talking not just Kansas City. I subscribe to like the Denver area and other areas around like kind of popular areas because, just for various reasons. So can you talk to me a little bit about like what's the Kansas City market? Is it cooling off or is it what's going on here? Tell me about that.
I think I'm not an economist, but I think it's kind of leveling off. It does appear there's a little less activity. I've had fewer inquiries at my new homes subdivision. Still getting them, I had a showing out there today. But I think people are just kind of waiting a second and like, okay, what does this interest rate increase actually mean for my monthly payment for my budget?
Yeah.
And prices haven't come off their highs too much. But I am noticing a house here or there. This is completely anecdotal.
We're eyeballing. Yeah. We are eyeballing this. So don't think that we are. This is just eyeballs. So go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
No. Anyway, this is exact science that the National Association of Realtors calibrates their data to.
Through so many algorithms. No.
The Census Bureau is like, yeah, that checks out.
Joe's gut says. No, this is gut reactions.
This is me looking at the MLS this morning. Inventory is still a little low, but as I kind of clicked through active listings in Johnson County, I noticed a few that had been on the market like 3 or 4 days. And that's kind of actually normal, in a normal market, a few years ago, it was awesome if you sold a home in 21 days.
Right. Yeah. This is just different times right now.
So, it's to the point where I still wouldn't be like scared if my house was on the market after a week, but if this is still a market where I'd say maybe after 2 weeks, you might want to reassess, but,
I see. Well, I was looking at, some calculators online because I like to keep track of where the interest rates are. And whenever my income changes, I like to see like, well, okay, so here's the goal for the next 2 years or 3 years of what my income is going to be, what I expect it to be. If I want to change a house, into a different house because my family is getting old. We're getting older, and space is getting a little smaller. What can I afford? And I'm checking that out, and I realized like this interest rate definitely has changed a lot of like what was like when it was under 3% of what I was able to afford, and I saw what it was like. Oh my gosh! And then those same numbers, what the monthly payment is, it is substantially higher. I would say noticeably to substantially higher for what my monthly, according to these online calculators that I use.
Yeah.
And that to me signals, again, we're not or I'm eyeballing this, but I'm just taking how I would do this. That signals to me like, well, I'm going to want to settle for a house for this monthly payment at a lower level because I'm more accustomed to, I can absorb this kind of monthly payment.
Yeah.
And that's forcing me to think, okay, well, the number was this much. Now it's down, whether it be like 40, 50, 60, whatever it is. And I'm having that's making me think right now, like, okay, well, when do I want to pull the trigger on this? If I want to do that, what is my situation and how do I handle that? But I keep on asking myself these questions and I keep on checking daily. So I'm aware of that whenever it comes time for it.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to do it. Check it daily, see how volatile it is, see if it's moving one direction or another. If you've been watching it for 2 weeks and it starts to creep up, it's like, well, okay, maybe now's the time, or creep down, the other way. Yeah, I mean, like you bought this house 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, would it still be in your budget today if you were looking at houses today?
With what it is listed for, like appraised, online appraised for, or what I paid for it 5 years ago?
No, what it is now, like.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. You know what? No, what it's appraised for right now, according to online appraisals, not official appraisals, it would be, as I was actually allowed this level of lending. They said you can get this high of what it is now. And I remember thinking, well, there's no way I'm going that high. That would be irresponsible of me I won't take that much mortgage out, because that would be, what's that term? Like house rich, cash poor.
Yeah,
I have I have a beautiful, nice big house, but I don't have any money to spend on anything else.
Yeah,
I don't want that. But yeah, I'm at the top level of what my mortgage limit would have been, but for what it is going for now. But yeah, that was 5 years ago. So obviously things have changed now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's bizarre to me. Like, wow, that is really it. And you said it last week too. We're like, yeah, it's great. You can sell it now and get your cash, but that would roll into another house as a down payment, which would absorb into their price. All the prices, they have all gone up. So I'd have to it all just kind of stays kind of even, unless I go with the idea of moving into a 2-bedroom apartment in the college area here in KU.
Put your proceeds in Pokemon NFTs. And,
so buy some NFTs.
Yeah,
which this is not good advice. Not a good idea.
No. We just in case you were following along and taking, somebody out there is writing down Pokemon NFTs. Now backtrack to just before we said that.
So it's. I mean. I feel like, it's a moving target. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know, Joe, what do you think? I'm going to say some of you react to this. Like, it really is what you personally feel, what you want, because my house, like, it can cost what it costs. At the end of the day, I'm living here every day. It's my life experience.
Yep.
It's my family. I want them to have nice space, and we want to live the life we want to live, and a spot here. It's like, I don't think of it as some investment, but I need to know where the money's at.
Yes.
So I can accomplish what I need to accomplish.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to look at it. And I think one of the best ways to look at it, because, as quickly as house prices went up, what goes up, I mean, I guess doesn't necessarily have to come down.
You can't predict the future, but I mean, it stands to reason just looking at it as like, this really went up fast, and the stocks correct all the time.
Yeah.
Stock price, things correct all the time. And I don't see why it couldn't happen here either, quite frankly.
But say you bought a $300,000 house and had to sell it 5 years later, and for whatever reason, economic, whatever, it's $275. Well, okay, that's a bummer, but still, you're getting some equity back. You're getting something back as opposed to renting. And two, you had the utility of the house that you got to use it for 5 years. What's that worth to you? It was what you wanted. It was a great place to live. You enjoyed it. That is worth something. So, it not all is lost if you're, if that house you lived in it 5 years and somehow it was worth like 85 grand, I would be like, I'm not going to say put the keys in the mailbox and walk away, but I could see why you'd be tempted.
I see. Yeah. It's
don't do that, by the way. You'll ruin your credit so bad.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea. Let's figure it out. Maybe hire a real estate agent, a realtor who can maybe like guide you through what needs to happen to make everything work out well. But yeah, you can drive yourself mad thinking about like the numbers when it comes to all this stuff, and it's important to know the numbers. But at the end of the day, as a primary residence, now if I'm in property investments and if I'm flipping houses, and that's its own thing. This is I'm speaking from the perspective of a primary residence person. Yeah. So yeah, it's like utility, what we want. I mean, if I bought my house and if something like in 2007 happened where we went underwater, it's like, well, look. Still employed and the mortgage payment's the same because I got like a 30-year fixed in conventional. So it's like, it's not going anywhere. I didn't have like those adjustable things. I had it's locked in. So yeah, my prices went down, kind of stinks, but I still have my house. And I would imagine, I mean, everyone was going, it was rough back then, but it's easy to say like it's going to rebound, but we didn't know what was going on back then, if anything was going to happen. But it seems like long-term, if you look at the long-term scales, like it tends to tick upwards.
It does. All of the charts and graphs I've seen of home values, it's a pretty safe bet long term. There's people who like they're kind of aging out of their homes that like bought their homes in like the late 60s or 70s and like paid them off 20 years ago, and it's like, yeah, that's nothing but equity and appreciation there.
Oh, right.
And I mean, unless they did something ridiculous, like, I don't know, I can't even think of something that would like harm the value that much. I guess maybe if they volunteered to store nuclear waste in their attic. I don't know. I mean, but,
you know who would do that?
Who's that?
Ted Koppel.
Bring in more depleted uranium. I don't know why I like it. Koppel like. Yes. It keeps the flies away. I don't know.
It keeps the mosquitoes and flies.
By the way,
I can use my porch.
Nuclear waste is not a good insecticide.
This episode has a lot of disclaimers.
Yeah.
A lot of disclaimers in this episode.
Yeah. It does. Yeah.
That is not actually Ted Koppel, by the way.
No, that is not it. Ted does not endorse our real estate services, though. I'd like to think he would if he tried them. Yes.
If he got to know us, I think if he hung out with us for a day, he would come around.
If somebody knows Koppel, my number's on the website.
Yeah, check out the ksrealtyagent.com. Number's there. If you know Koppel, we want him. Get him on the show. We'd love to interview him. You know what? Maybe he wants to be interviewed for once.
I bet he has a nice house.
I bet I bet you he does.
I bet it's got like all sorts of pictures of him, like, at world news events. I don't know, like helicopters flying off into the distance behind him. Like shaking world leaders' hands. And it's like, why didn't you punch Castro when you had the chance, Koppel?
That's not how. Yeah, that's not how Koppel.
He made me a delicious Monte Cristo.
So back on the kind of market trends thing though, and so is there anything around like the metro area where you're noticing like more or less like from Overland Park to Lenexa, Shawnee, Gardner, any one of these areas? Does it all kind of follow each other, or is there one spot that's hotter or cooler than others? Like, is there a way to even look at that, or tell me about that?
Very generally speaking, if things are slowing down, they kind of tend to slow down at the outlying areas and the edges of the metro first, and then kind of work their way in. And so in an area like Gardner, where I do a lot of work with my new homes community, Tuscan Farm, I have started to see nothing like scary, but it's like, oh, wow, that house was on the market 4 days, which again is still, over the last 20 years, that's still good.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? We're looking from a scope of what has been happening recently versus over 20 years. If you would have had a 4-day situation in 2010, I'm sure you would have been excited like to sell a house within a week or 4 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this this has just been a very historically strange and excessively hot seller's market.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, I think I've said it before. I think it's just low inventory is driving that. You know, it is still low today. And I'm starting to think if it, you know, as the year goes on, it's like usually at the beginning of the year, we see people who are sitting on the fence during the holidays and stuff bring a lot of stuff on in January and February. Then there's kind of another pop when things start to warm up weather-wise in March. But it's just stayed consistently like the number when I just go into the multiple listing service and click on active before I set any other criteria, metro-wide, the inventory is still below 3,000.
You know what I think it is?
What's that?
I think it's, so let's say you bought your house in the early 2000s or maybe 2010, early 2010s, I mean, even like 20, somewhere in there. And you bought your house and that was your like home that you want to stay. Maybe you envision someday of like moving around the metro area or moving out, but you bought it at probably, I don't know what the interest rates were, but they probably all, I predict that a lot of refinancing was going on.
Oh, there was a ton.
A lot of refinancing getting down because that number seems like it bottomed out like around the 2.75, 2.8. I looked, I swear I saw some numbers that were around that area. And they're like, look, we refinanced it down. Our monthly payment is now like way lower than what it was before. We got some, maybe they did a cash out refi. Like, look, our number, like to live where we are now, the monthly payment, and we like our house, you know, they're probably like locked in. Like, look, we love where we live and the numbers is really reasonable. So we're going to stick around here because the jobs are here, our jobs are here and everything. And our kids are here. So let's just keep it going that way. So
that's true. Yeah.
Maybe that's just one idea. I don't know.
Yeah, no, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Yeah. A low interest rate could, you know, it could get you more house than you were expecting. And maybe you don't have to make that move up after all. You thought, oh, in my adult life, I'll have 4 houses, but no, I found it by the 3rd or whatever, you know? So,
yeah,
no, that rings true. That makes a lot of sense.
I guess that dovetails nicely into new homes now, new construction home, because if the inventory is low and people aren't reselling, I guess the next thing is like, well, we got to build new ones.
That is true. That is one solution to inventory is to build new homes. And that, that gets us a lot of home buyers, people who couldn't find what they wanted out in the open resale market.
But tell me this, though, the new homes I find, like they tend to be pretty higher priced, though. Is that fair to say?
They do. It's like, yes. Now, we do still have to kind of keep it in line a little bit with resale homes because sometimes that's all appraisers have to go off of for comps.
Okay.
But generally speaking, yes. It's a weird thing, like feature for feature, square foot per square foot, a new home will get more money than a resale, just like a new car would.
Okay.
But that's where the analogy kind of stops because a car depreciates so fast and a home does not.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of reselling my car. I assume I'll never make money off of my car. But the job of my car is to get my family and I around safely.
Not unless you get like super famous in the next month. And they're like, hey, this car belonged to Brian Reynolds.
That's Ted Koppel's car.
yeah. Koppel just buys a car, drives it for a week, and flips it on eBay.
That's how we do.
Yeah, that's why that Toyota Tercel went for $90,000.
Yeah. The only cars that I see that actually like retain value are like those fancy old cars from like the 50s and 60s, by the way. You're a car guy, so you probably know way better than that. I don't know if there's anything modern that does that, but who knows?
Well, I mean, I hope can I mention a car auction website or would we get?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I don't care.
Carsandbids.com. It's run by a guy named Doug DeMuro. And there's cars that, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, would have depreciated in value. Now they've got like kitsch and camp value that like, stuff that wasn't necessarily exotic, but they didn't make many of. Things that now have gotten rare because people have trashed them. But a good example, like you could still pick up an affordable Pontiac Aztec, but like when Walter White drove one in Breaking Bad, and now that they're super rare, And kind of the fact that they were hated when they were new kind of gives them like a kitschy value.
All right. It's ironically cool.
Yeah, exactly. And then stuff like, excuse me, sports cars with manual transmissions have gotten rare.
Okay.
And enthusiasts love those. It used to be like used car lots would not even give a second look to cars with manual transmissions because they were declining in popularity. But now, like the older Ferraris and stuff where there was that kind of crossover where they were putting I guess Ferrari calls them the semi-automatic gearbox with the paddle shifters and stuff. When there were models available with both, like the F355, I think was one of them, the manual transmission ones sell for much, much more now.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, yeah. I can't remember where I was going. So there's like a class of cars, like old Nissan Zs, maybe not so much Miatas. Those were pretty abundant, but German sedans with manual transmissions from the late 90s,
Okay. So I guess what we're trying to articulate here as well is like, okay, so cars can retain, but they have to, it's a very unique situation as opposed to a house, which they go by square footage. And new homes, like I think one of the advantages about like a new home, when I think about it is, tell me if I'm wrong, like you can pick your own, like, can you pick like your own like features and stuff? And
yes.
What else is fancy about that?
Yeah. So there are some caveats, but unfortunately, it's gotten a little harder for builders to do as many custom features as they could because their vendors are busy and it's hard to get pricing. And you can do it, but just be prepared for it to take a long time. And this sounds ridiculous, but just for the builder to like bid out what it'll cost to add that, simple things like adding bookshelves to a room, that's not such a big deal, but reorienting like where your tub and shower are in your master bathroom. Well, he's got to rebid his linear feet on his tile and his countertops, and so it can be done. And we don't want to discourage people from doing it, but it takes a while because these vendors are busy, and it takes them a while to see what's in stock and ththings like that. So
you ever see that show Silicon Valley?
Yes.
Where a big head, he thought the pool was too far away. So he paid him to move the pool 10 feet closer and then realized that was too close and moved it back 10 feet. And the guy goes, his money manager, like, do you like being rich? He's like, oh yeah, it's great. Okay. My first advice, stop moving the pool.
Yeah. If you have a pool, just leave it where it's at. Just get an extra flagstone for your just walk out there. But
so speaking of new homes, so what is the process like to building a new home? Like, take me through that.
So I'll start at the very beginning, and that is picking out a floor plan and the home site that you want, and then sometimes you've picked out a community and there's two floor plans you're deciding between or something like that, and you're not quite ready to go to contract. In my community, you can reserve a lot for a few weeks. I think we officially say 2 weeks, but if you're cool, we'll let you slide and let you reserve it for 4.
If you're cool.
Yeah.
You're cool?
If we like you.
No, we're cool. Okay, you cool? We're cool.
Yeah. Yeah. If I like your face, So that gives you time to meet with the builder and maybe go over some of that stuff where you're talking about that could cost extra. Now, before I get too far off of that, but simple things like if you were changing wall colors, countertop colors, hardware, that's kind of a given. You can pick that out and it's not too hard to change. But the more the builder has to move around, the more it costs and the harder it is. But
this house is 2 levels. I want 4 levels. That's going to be a little bit more.
It is. Yes. And that's if the city approves a 4-story house. They may say something like, residential homes can only be like 3 stories, which that's pretty rare. But I remember when I was a kid, I thought the 3-story house was like the coolest thing ever. It's like, we're so high up.
I like how in my house here, like front facing, it looks 2-story, but we look out the back side because the like the hill is kind of steep from my front door to my back door. And you walk out back and I'm mowing. I see the basement level, the main level, and the upper level. I'm like, that is a tall house. So
Yeah.
the basement exposed like that.
Yeah. But anyway, so get everything sorted out. The builder will make a price breakdown of every option you're putting in the home, plus the base price of the house, plus the lot. So you have your total price. And at that point, you can kind of look at that price breakdown. And if it exceeds your budget, well, then you can kind of strike something off of there that you don't necessarily need. Like, I don't know, a water slide. I'm being silly. I haven't had anybody ask for a water slide yet, but that'd be cool.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I want one of those.
If I have a water slide in my house, I've made it.
That's making it nowadays.
Koppel will come over. I heard you had a water slide. I brought my trunks and our White Claw.
I heard the news. You have a water slide.
Yeah. So from there, you'll go to contract and you'll put down a deposit. My builder requires 5%, which is actually relatively low. I've heard builders require up to 10 or 15% in some cases.
Yeah, I've heard is that a thing you can finance with if you get approved for a conventional loan? Like, is that, or is it like you have to bring that cash with you kind of thing?
You have to put it, that's your deposit that says, I'm not going to walk away while the builder's building this.
Okay. So that's like out of your own pocket.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
right,
so if you're building a home, you do have to have some cash on hand.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're building a $400,000 home, check my math, but that would be $20,000 due at contract time to the builder. And that's something his bank requires for him to pull a construction loan. Yep. They're like, okay, well, does this builder have some skin, or this buyer have some skin in the game? Do you have something if they walk away?
Mm-hmm. This is very expensive for all of us. Yeah. We got to make sure you're not just like playing a prank on us for our YouTube channel where you screw over builders.
Yeah.
It's a prank, man. Good luck with your $40,000.
Why are Jamie Kennedy and Ashton Kutcher going in together on a house?
What a reference. That is old. That's Zennial, older millennial reference right there. Yeah, if you're a YouTuber, you're Gen Z or listening to this, you'd have no idea who that is.
There was a whole season where the Jamie Kennedy experiment, where all he did was walk away from new homes deals. Yeah.
How terrible.
Yeah.
How cringe. Oh, God.
Yeah. So, but now, think of it this way. When you're closing on your loan, most people put about 5% down, sometimes more. So when you close on your loan, you do get that deposit back to flip to your down payment if you want.
Okay. So, all right. So it's not, okay. Yeah. So it's a deposit.
Yeah.
Got it.
Now, it is in the new construction world, that is a non-refundable deposit.
Yeah.
So you better be sure. And
yeah, you better listen to whenever that's spoken to you and what's in the paperwork that I assume one signs whenever they do that. You better read that.
Yes. And so, and honestly, if you're buying a $400,000 home, which is kind of low in the new construction world these days, and you're putting $20,000 down, honestly, the builder may have, permits are so expensive, the builder may have spent that deposit by the time the house is permitted. And so even if you back out then, and he wants to make you whole, he's like, I'm sorry, I've heard permits cost upward of $23,000.
Dear Lord.
There's hooking into water mains. There's the electrical mains. It's expensive to permit a house. Yeah.
Sounds like technology can disrupt that, make it cheaper.
That could be an interesting topic. I could do a deep dive in what all that goes into.
I would like to know about that. That is actually quite fascinating. I want to know more about that.
But once he has the permits, then the builder can break ground. And what the city does is they review the plans, make sure in our city, Gardner, and I think most cities in the Kansas City metro area, in fact, all that I know of, require an engineer's stamp and an architect's stamp on each plan.
Okay.
And then you stake the lot. And I'm going to kind of blow through these pretty quickly. You stake the lot, you excavate, you set up forms, pour the foundation. Once the foundation cures, you can start framing. Then you do, once the house is under roof, as we call it, you start doing rough heating and air, rough electrical, and rough plumbing. And at that stage, I know in Gardner where we build, that's one of the stages where the city inspector comes in before you put the insulation up, and there's stuff you can't see. So he checks all the electrical and plumbing and heating and air. Then you can insulate, drywall, the trim carpenter comes in, the cabinet guy comes in. Then you usually do flooring. These can kind of go in slightly different orders. I guess the painters usually come in before flooring because then, they don't have to worry about getting paint on the new floor.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Then they do countertops, finish plumbing, finish electrical. That's all your light fixtures and stuff. And then there's any number of things to come back for, clean up, touch up, making sure all the doors and windows open and close.
Wow.
At one time, I asked a builder about how many different people work on a house start to finish, and his estimate was around 95.
Okay, so this is not you doing all of this. You are not, all the things you just listed, you're not doing that.
No, I am not. No.
Okay,
yeah,
because I was confused for a second there.
No, yeah, I wouldn't even know how to run the laser level for the for the excavation. They'd be like, why is my foundation floor like a funhouse floor?
So you're talking about all these great things. I'm like, Joe does a lot of work, but turns out 90 people go into this. That's a lot.
I mean, just from what I've mentioned, there's excavator, flat work, foundation, framer, plumber, electrician, an insulator, a drywall. The roofer is different than the framer even. There's the I know I'm forgetting steps along the way.
The landscaper, is that a person?
Yeah, absolutely. That is landscaper. And sometimes even like our sod guy is different than our landscape guy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And sometimes it's like the concrete flat work for like the front walk is a different guy than the flat work for the foundation,
So that's probably why a deposit is very important, because there's a lot of people spending a lot of time, and we want people who are very serious, like putting some skin in the game. This is something that they want to see through. And, okay, that makes sense for sure. It makes sense.
And we had one that closed about a week ago, and we need a final certificate of occupancy for somebody to even move in. If the city sees somebody even like bringing a floor lamp without a certificate of occupancy, the builder starts getting like serious fines.
Ooh.
And so the city inspector was coming at 3:00, and I was at the house at about 11:30, and the construction supervisor is there, and it was just a mad dash. And I felt so you talk about like, what do I do on the house? Well, I felt helpless because I couldn't do it. So I just said to him, I go, can I go get something? He's like, yeah, we need the house numbers. So I ran to Home Depot and got the house numbers. That was my contribution.
I'm building a house, guys. Look at me go. Here are the numbers. Can I screw them in?
Yeah. And like the construction supervisor, this really nice guy, Tanner, I brought him back, and I'm like, this is true. It's kind of funny, but I don't know. People be like, that's a dumb story. But I was like, they were out of 9s, so I bought 2 6s. I'm like, just know that, and
the inspector's going to have my ass. The county is going to deny this if they know that.
You just turned that 6 upside down.
That's great. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. That's quite a process.
Yeah.
And, you can just, I'm impressed how you can just rattle that off from memory on top of your head. Like you just kind of go.
Well, I've done enough of them now where people ask, hey, what's the next stage? What's the next stage? And like, I've got a house right now where, we're waiting for the city inspection on the rough plumbing because they have to check and pressurize the gas line to the furnace. And I've told the folks, once that's done, it's insulation, then drywall.
Nice.
And so like that's something that's very front of mind right now. But no, if you asked me to rattle that off, when I first started, I'd be like, well, okay, so the thigh bone connects to okay, yeah.
That's great. Good information. Hey, good podcast.
Good one.
That's a good one. You know who would really like this podcast?
Ted Koppel.
Ted Koppel would like this podcast.
You're welcome for stopping by.
How would he say this about this podcast if he was like introducing the news or signing off on the news? I don't know. Pick one.
Signing off?
Yeah, signing off.
This is Ted Koppel for ksrealtyagent.com. Buy a house with them so they stop bothering me.
That's spectacular. I can't even beat that. All I can say is like, subscribe, share. Joe the Realtor, aka Joe Stevenson. Good show.
Hail Koppel.
Koppel. Love Koppel.
Right.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe and tune in to the next one.